Good evening, all, and thank you so much for gathering with us this Monday evening. My name is Sarah. I'm one of Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake's Program and Outreach Coordinators. And before we get started, we're just going to go over a brief tech orientation that you'll see here on the next slide, just to ensure a pleasant experience for everyone this evening. First, we ask that you keep yourself muted during the presentation. And if you need help, please use the chat feature. You can direct message one of our IPC staff. Will be happy to help. And last but not least, again, this session is being recorded. So if you don't want to have your image shown during this session, please turn off your camera now. And so next, you'll see a lovely staff photo. We're just going to go through a brief welcoming to our organization for new folks in the room. You can see me at the front row. If you are in the DMV area and you want to connect, please reach out. All my contact information is listed. Next, we're going to take a look at our program lineup. We're going to start with a land acknowledgement. We'll have an opening reflection. We'll briefly show you some of our funders and supporters that are helping making this work possible. You'll get a chance to meet our panelists as we have an in-depth discussion for tonight's program, Seeds of Stewardship. And we'll have some time for Q&A, and we'll close with a prayer. And so now, if you would like to join me while muted, as we today hold space and for reflection on and gratitude for the land upon which we live and the local waters that support and nourish us all. We recognize that this land and these waters were beloved by many who came before. We reflect together as people of faith in response to the calling of our hearts to come alongside the original stewards of this land and these waters that sustain us all. And we seek to change the narrative of this story, our story, towards one of harmony with the gifts of creation and all living beings. And we ask you to honor and learn from their intimate connection, love, and appreciation of these sacred lands and waters. And I'll put a link in the chat where you can explore just a brief snapshot of history, while we know that there's more than 10,000 years of Indigenous history. Next, we're going to open with a prayer. This is a great one for gardeners and perfect time for spring. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the beautiful plants and gifts of gardening. Bless the gardens and their plants, and may they thrive with health and abundance. Guide our hands as we tend to your creation and protect them from harm. May our efforts be a testament to your glory. Thank you. Thanks for taking that moment of reflection with us. We're going to shift gears quickly and just kind of, share a little bit more gratitude for everyone that's making this work possible, as you can see here on our funders page. And then next, we want to talk just briefly about how we help connect congregations to environmental partners and local governments and help them find funding for environmental stewardship projects on their property. And next, we have to mention that you're not doing this alone. We have a program. It's our flagship program. And if you haven't signed the pledge, we'll encourage you to do that. Next, you can see that our next Faithful Green Leaders training is coming this fall. We have October dates on our event page. We encourage you to join if you haven't already. And last but not least, we want to mention our available resource page that's open to all. There's tons of resources, from liturgical sources to action kits and menus for action, depending on your region. So let's jump right into the heart of tonight's discussion. Without further ado, we want to talk about seeds and sowing seeds for stewardship. Our first speaker of the evening is Khalilah Denney. She's a hometown hero to Prince George's County residents. That's my county. She's helping those in need throughout the state of Maryland with her nonprofit organization, the Denney House. She's also an environmental steward and master gardener who's earned numerous awards for her advocacy work in restorative environmental justice. She's the founder of the Denney House, and through its Project Clean Water initiative, she's developed some innovative programming connecting youth to nature through community gardens, beautification projects, and community cleanups. Everyone, please welcome Khalilah.
Hello, hello, hello. So help me understand how this process goes. Is this interactive? Can the audience participate? I meant to ask that question earlier. I'm sorry.
No worries. No, absolutely through chat. So we'll encourage folks to use the chat feature. And then if it's all right with you, we'll just hold any Q&A till the end. But any questions you want to ask to get the audience engaged, yeah, go right ahead.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So welcome to our Seed Talk. I am, as Khalilah Denney, Executive Director and founder of the Denney House. And I am just happy to be here and help you guys and share, not help, but share you what it means to have a community garden here in Prince George's County or in any community for that matter. So next slide. I wanted to open up with a scripture that really kind of grounds what I do when it comes from a gardening perspective. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. So Genesis 2 from the very beginning, reminds us, tells us that, man was put here on earth to tend the garden. So it is definitely holy work when you are considering putting your hands to soil and starting a community garden. So next slide. These first few slides I'm going to go through very quickly. I just wanted to make sure that, we had some grounding information around why we should be, setting up a community garden. If for me, the food insecurity in our neighborhoods, there's a lack of wholesome and whole grocery stores and things of that nature. I feel like the environmental impact that is happening right now is increasing. Our carbon footprint is increasing, and we want to, make sure that we have community spaces that's growing our food that's closer to us and lowering that carbon footprint. So here's a few points that, really kind of help us understand why gardening matters, right? Our faith calls us to care for both people and the planet. And, that beginning scripture kind of really, ties that in. So next slide. So for me, this work started because we wanted to protect our waterways. There was a conversation with me and Elder Gann about, how important it is to keep our waters clean in the Chesapeake Bay, and the work that we're doing is definitely 100% the reason why we are here today, cleaning our waterways on our community cleanups. But the impact that gardens have is real clear. This makes our soil healthier, and it reduces, the need for like synthetic fertilizers and things like that, because we grow organically. And I wanted to share that these slides will be, sent out hopefully to everyone who's participating, so you'll get the gist for me. So this part is, we can go to the next slide, I'm sorry. Okay, and then so gardening also reduces our carbon footprint, which is what I shared. So local food, growing your food in your backyard or growing in a community space will lessen our fuel miles. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with the fact that, most of our food comes from places like Florida or even some overseas. And, that carbon that's being put into the atmosphere, that is just not healthy. for our community, for longevity, for sustainability. So the best thing we can do is, grow our own food in our backyard locally, to reduce that carbon footprint. Next slide. So we also want to, grow in community because it will help reduce our waste. When you can compost the food from your kitchen, and a lot of other things that come from your household are compostable, and you can reduce your waste dramatically. And it also, helps with the education of our younger generation, bringing those our young people into the space of gardening, helps make sure that we have a sustainable future. So just want to make sure that we are, um, educating our young people and making sure that they are engaged in gardening as well. So next slide. Um, Biggest thing for me is gardening builds community, and it helps us serve others, right? This one, we feed our neighbors and our vulnerable populations, provide space for healing, peace, and connection. That's near and dear to me because that's why we have our community gardens, and we help others build community gardens. So we can build community in our areas. The churches we have supported senior living facilities. We've supported a number of different organizations where we are bringing people together who are growing and serving the community. So um, next slide. All right, so this is the part that we're here for, right? Let's kind of dive into garden structure, but I'd like to see, does anyone have like a desired way to grow? Like, is there a specific plant or a specific vegetable that you think you would want to grow? Just to put that in the chat, and we can talk about whether it's not something that we can grow here in Maryland, or not. But if there's something that you love, that you want to see, you want to try and grow yourself, I'd love to hear about that. All right, so for me, it is important that you pick your garden design based on what your needs are, right? There's a number of different ways um, to garden. We have our in-ground growing, which is most popular for large spaces. It is the least costly way to do it. You don't have to worry about purchasing beds and purchasing soil and things of that nature, and bringing that in to so it reduces your cost initially. Um, some may say, okay, well, I like the idea of in-ground growing beds, excuse me, but I love the aesthetic look of, wood raised beds. You may want to grow in raised beds, and raised beds are a great choice. It's just a little bit more work, a lot more costly than growing in ground. However, you can kind of control the environment much more in raised beds than you can in in-ground growing. You can control what you put inside, what the soil life looks like. So you have much more control over that. So, and then there's container gardening. There is a host of different materials that you can grow in. And this one sometimes is easier to digest when you have recycled materials that you can use to help you, move forward with starting a garden. And if you see here, we presented it in these big water containers. A lot of times you see food safety, not food safety, I'm sorry. So these are food safe, but what I'm trying to say is a lot of times these are just tossed. These type of containers are just tossed. So when you can recycle something like that and start a community garden using those, and we've done that before, or we'll cut them in half and grow in these types of containers. So it's just really based on what your budget is, what materials you have access to, and then the size of the garden space um, will help kind of determine that. So does anyone have any questions about that you want to put into the chat, and then we can answer those later. All right, next slide. All right, so garden infrastructure. This piece is important because a lot of times we think about growing and we say, oh, okay, we want to put some beds up and we're going to grow and we're all good. But we want to make sure that we're thinking about our watering process, and if the space has access to water. If it does, do we need to put together an irrigation system? Is there going to be, someone or a team of people who are coming to the garden to water, on a schedule? So just making sure that we're thinking about how the watering process is going to go. You want to make sure that you have a watering system. Sometimes churches I've seen have put in the big water tanks, and I can't cisterns is what they're called. I know the rain check rebate process will allow for some matching in funds for that. So if you're thinking about maybe the space that you have, you don't have access to groundwater and you want to do some rain barrels or a cistern, you could get funding from the Chesapeake Trust rain check rebate process to do that. So consider your watering systems. Also consider your storage. It's important that you have storage for seasonal items, for seed banks. If you decide to have a seed bank at your garden, you want to make sure that your tools and things have a place that is safe and out of the way, because sometimes you don't want to have to people leaving things around. You can step on it and it cause a hazard. So it's very important to think about storage. Making sure that things that you only use seasonally has a place to live that is out of the weather. And so that's really important. Also, for me, every community garden that we service, that we make sure that we have some type of composting on the facility, on the garden grounds. Composting is a very big element to gardening. You need a place for the garden waste to go that is productive, and this having a composting station is quite vital to your garden infrastructure. One of the things that's not listed here that I like to mention is fencing. Depending on where your garden is, you might have, a situation where wildlife is interrupting and coming in and eating up all your veggies and things like that. So you want to consider a fencing structure that kind of helps keep the wildlife out, the deer, the rabbits, and things of that nature. But you may not have that problem depending on where you are. So that's something to consider. Next slide. All right, so now we know where we're going to garden. We know what kind of bed we're going to grow in. We know, we've decided that we're going to get those pretty wood beds, raised beds, and now we want to know what we're going to plant in them. As a community garden, we are looking to grow as much food as we possibly can. There's a number of different things that you can grow in a community garden that makes sense for your community. Tomatoes, peppers. You may have some perennial space where you want to put some artichoke and things of that nature. We can grow a lot of different things here in Maryland. So there's really no nothing keeping us from growing fruits. We got fruit trees and things like that. So the sky's the limit when it comes to the food you can grow. But I wanted to bring your attention to some of the native plants that is important to, a community garden as well, because this will bring your pollinators. So you want to make sure that you make space for the life that's inside the soil, but also the life that's outside the soil. So our monarch butterflies is one of the things that is very vital, to our space. And the butterfly milkweed is the host plant for the monarch butterfly. Our bees and other things love it just as much. The black-eyed Susan is the state plant, but it's also loved by our pollinators. It's also native, right? And bee balm. Bee balm brings a beautiful fragrance, the beautiful colors. This one specifically is native to Maryland, but they come in, so many different shades, and it's from the mint family. So it's just a beautiful plant to have in your garden. So while you're thinking about growing food, you want to also be thinking about the pollinators and growing a sustainable environment and ecosystem with those pollinators. Next slide. So here are some edible native plants that we could also consider growing in your community garden. Pawpaws are a very delicious fruit that is like a cross between a mango and a banana, and I love them. So you can consider growing those. You can consider growing service berries. Service berries are also edible. For the birds, love them, as well as, they're good for us to eat as well. And then our American hazelnut. So that one takes a little bit longer to grow, but if you're thinking about long term, this community garden is going to be here for quite some time. These are native perennial trees that fruit year after year after year, and will continue to provide you with food for your community garden. So, excuse me.
While we're giving Khalilah just a moment, just to make mention, the pawpaws are delicious. I have had them before, and it's just amazing, this whole idea of food forest, and it's critical, especially for like our area, Prince George's Greater DMV. Um, Sorry to just jump in, Khalilah.
Oh no, thank you. That was helpful because I'm dying over here. Ah, okay. No, I'm not. I'm just sorry. Better. So yeah. So with that, I think our next slide, excuse me, talks about our cover crops. So cover cropping is very, very important. I know I've been saying that a lot, but cover cropping is very important to the health of your soil. So if you are, growing on a scale where you're doing a lot of different things that like to draw the nitrogen out of the soil, cover cropping will help, put those vital nutrients back into the soil. Winter wheat is one of those ones that if you catch it at the right time before it goes into the seed stage, and crimp that down, you can turn it into the soil and it'll add compost in place and add those vital nutrients right back into your soil. Crimson clover is one of those same that you can let this one flower. It's one of the first signs of spring, when you put crimson clover in and cut that down, and it just really fixes the nitrogen in the soil. And another one is the hurry vetch. I haven't used this one, but I hear that it's really good for the health of your soil. So we're turning these beds over and over. We're planting broccoli, and then we're taking that out. Now we're planting our summer crops, and all of these crops are really hungry. Our cucumbers are very hungry, and they just rob your soil of the soil health. So cover cropping kind of helps mitigate that by adding, that health back to the soil. Next slide. All right, so that probably went faster than I thought it would, but I wanted to make sure that I had left time for questions. I know I went over a lot of different things, so can we check the chat and see if there were any questions, or any further information people are looking for? Excuse me.
Yeah, so there were a couple of good questions at the beginning. One was, is there a problem, if you're using the rain barrels, is there a problem letting the water in the rain barrels stay for too long? Is there like an optimal point at which you should just let the water out?
Oh, that is a good question. So I've never had that problem. But I'm sure if you're using the proper rain barrels, which one they should be dark in color, and not allowing light in. If you have that going on, and then you have at the top of the rain barrels, there should be some kind of mesh system that keeps the leaves and the debris and things like that out of the water. If you are, using the proper rain barrels, from my experience, the water has been fine for months. Now, I don't know if you can go any longer than that. We'd have to Google and see what Google says. Do any of the ladies here have any experience with that? No? Okay, yeah. So that would be my suggestion. Just if you're making sure that the rain barrels, just the water that's going in is staying clean, you have some kind of catchment system that keeps the leaves and the debris out of the water. And then you're using rain barrels that are dark in color to keep the sun keep the sun out and keep the allergy down. You should be fine.
Okay. There's one other question here, and then we can move on. Do you have any tips on managing invasives? So I think it's Leslie is saying here that she gave up because bamboo roots and poison ivy took over her yard, and there was lots of deer all over. So what do you advise?
Um, so Leslie, that is such a problem across, the gardening community, right? So when it comes to invasives, so I don't use any kind of chemicals in our community gardens. We do have, homemade remedies, I would say, for killing things off. But to stay on top of digging those invasives out from the root is my suggestion. As soon as you see them popping up, just get at it. But try using, organics. There's uh, it's vinegar and soapy water, but it's a high concentrated vinegar that you can get from like Lowe's, and a little soapy water, and put that in a bottle, with mix that up and spray that on your weeds and on your invasives, and it'll kill it right off. It will kill pretty much anything, but it's a natural way to do it versus getting Roundup or something to kill it out. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Leslie?
Well, that might work on some of the weeds and poison ivy, but to be honest, I've even hired people to come in and try to dig up the bamboo, and it just spreads like a steel cage under the ground. It's amazing the roots of the bamboo.
Yeah, so the bamboo problem that we had at the town, community city of Glenarden, they've been eradicating it for like 3 years, but they have seen success. They are digging it up. You just have to get at it. You have to really get at it and continue to dig it up. And it's going away, but it is a slow process for sure.
It's a pervasive problem. I'll second that. I know Greenbelt also deals with it and calls openly for volunteers quite often to get at the bamboo and poison ivy. So yeah, unfortunately, there is no easy answer for that. The silver lining is it keeps you outside because you know you'll have to keep coming back to do that maintenance. But
Right.
Khalilah, before we shift gears, and I want to be respectful, Elder Gannon, and make sure you have the floor here. I just wanted to circle back with the rain barrel because that was a really great question, and I wanted to just see. And so it looks like fresh is best. So you mentioned Khalilah, like, I hadn't even, like, my supply doesn't even last a couple months, which if you think about it, when the summer's dry, you are going to end up using it,
Right.
quickly. But that, yeah, algae and health concerns can arise after a couple months. So it's fresh is best. If you have a rain event, you should probably use it within that first 30 to 60 days. So thanks so much for that question.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears, and there are some more questions, Khalilah, so please don't mind hanging with us to the end here.
Oh yeah.
We'll give folks some more time to put some answers, some questions in the chat. And before we do that, though, I want to welcome Elder Gwendolyn Gant, who is a longtime supporter of IPC's work. She currently serves as the Community Outreach Director and Special Events Coordinator at Stephen Baptist Church in Temple Hills, not far from my childhood home. She's under the leadership of Bishop Lanier Tillwin, the senior pastor. She also serves as the outreach director for Project Bright Future Mentoring. You're going to see a picture of this amazing program a little bit later on. And over the years, she's served in many ministries at St. Stephen Baptist and now provides oversight for several other ministries and also helps with some of the work she's done recently with IPC and our Trees for Sacred Places program. So I want to give the floor to Elder Gant. Thank you so much for spending your evening here with us. And please tell us a little bit more about all the incredible work you're doing there.
Bless you and thank you, Sarah. It's always a pleasure to be in your presence and Anna and Sister Denney and hear such great things. So good evening to everyone. I'm truly honored to be here and share the journey of our garden, how we grew a simple vision into a thriving community space rooted in faith, sustainability, and service. Our journey began at St. Stephen's Baptist Church with a dream to do something that honored the land, nurture the soul, and feed the body. We believed we could transform a small patch of ground into something that reflects God's abundance and creativity. With that in mind, we applied and received a $10,000 grant, which gave us the support to begin our journey, to make our journey even greater. From there, we rolled up our sleeves and many people helped. The Denney House, so faithful, they came, they built the beds. We started off with 4 raised bed garden beds. We expanded that to 8 beds. So they built those beds for us. You see those in the pictures. We are just a backyard garden. We're not the big farm, we're just a backyard garden. We have about 340 square feet of garden space along with the patch. I think you can see that in one of those pictures. The project was implemented in thoughtful phases from spring prep to summer abundance, fall harvest, and winter rest. each season bringing its own lessons and blessings. The first step was to have the beds built. And of course, like I said, the Denney House stepped right in and built those beds. And then we brought in a master gardener, and they came twofold. They're not members of our church. We believe in working together and working with whomever want to help us get this work done. As you can see, our project is called Seed to Table. That's the name of our garden. Project Bright Future is our nonprofit organization from the church, and we run the garden. Now, I mentioned to you, we have a master gardener. I have with me today Novella Jackson. She is a member of Genesis Covenant, Pastor Slade. So Sister Novella and Pastor Slade were the master gardener. Pastor Slade worked from afar, but Sister Novella was boots on the ground. And so I'm going to yield to Sister Novella to tell you how we after the gardens were built, how we managed that garden and what we did from there. And then I'll tell you a little bit more. Sister Novella, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. It's in your hands.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so like Elder Gas said, we had the beds built, and then we put down, because we wanted to not go into the soil, so we put down cardboard in each of the beds. Then we had some chips that we had to come in, and we put chips in after the cardboard, and then we put down organic soil that had to be purchased for each of the beds and the patch. So after we got the beds ready, we were ready for our summer garden. And we grew, we grew cucumbers, tomatoes, green peppers, squash, zucchini, string beans, watermelon, and mint, and another herb. So that took us through the summer, and we had an abundance of cucumbers, abundance of tomatoes, and string beans. We had some lessons learned that we won't try again, but the summer garden was fantastic. So after we harvest out of the summer garden, and I think it was on Thursday, we had the community to come in, and if they needed to come in any other days, they just needed to let us know. So we had the community to come in to harvest some of the crop on Thursdays. And the community also helped us to plant when we had planting season. So after the summer crop, we prepared the beds for the fall crop. And in most of the beds in the fall, we just had a variety of greens: kale, collard, turnip, mustard. Seemed like I'm missing one, but we had just a variety of greens in all the beds, and they did very well. And so in the winter, after we harvested greens, we pulled up most of the plants, but we left the kale. We left the kale, and we had the kale and what we call the patch, and we'll see that in a picture. We had the kale in this large patch in some of the beds, and the kale came back. We knew it was coming back because the master gardener had told us that the kale would come back. The kale came back. The other beds, what we did, we collected leaves because we didn't use any herbicides and pesticides either. We collected leaves from people that did not use them on their lawn. So we overwintered our beds with shredded leaves. And so now we're in the process. We started the process of getting ready for our spring and summer gardening. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Sister Novella. We'll take questions at the end.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that story. So yeah, that's what we did. I'm telling you, Sister Novella did a fantastic job. She did so well, I'm letting her come back again this year. So we are excited. But I'm telling you, one of the most heartwarming parts of this journey was to spark interest to others. We had our one of our nursing homes that we provide service to. They came to our grand opening and they were certainly excited, and they went back and they wanted to start a garden. And so we did help them. They built like 10 raised bed gardens. And so we don't mind helping each other. And even beyond that, they needed to plant some trees on their property. And of course, who did we call but Chesapeake? And they came to our rescue and they planted some wonderful trees on her property, which gave her the impact that she needed. And so again, it's such a great joy that God has given us the vision to grow and to work with the community. We've had about 150 community people that came to see the garden. Yes, they came to see the garden. I see the Tuesday food giveaway there, 11 a.m. to 3. That's the food distribution we do. And so some of that food did go to that. And I just found it a way to help the community to work together, to give the young people a sense of learning how to work together. We even had the summer youth employees who worked in the garden. We taught them the gardening, where when people came to see the garden, they taught them the gardening. And so again, each one teach one. And lastly, I did write a children's book called From Seed to Table. That book is to be published this month. And of course, it has Sister Denney in it, what she did. I told Novella, all of the story in the children's book is probably not true, but it's enough for them to get the story, because you have to make it exciting for them. And so you have to embellish a little bit just to make the story exciting. But I promise you that book will show a child a journey on why they should be interested in writing, in working in the soil and planting. We even brought young people on the premises, and Sister Novella and some of the team, they potted flowers for them. They planted food for them in their pots, and they took their pots home and they watched them grow. So again, thank you, Interfaith Partners of the Chesapeake and the Denney House, and everyone listening. Thank you for the work you are doing to help the environment and the earth. God bless you all. Thank you. And certainly we'll take any questions if there be any.
Thank you so much, Elder Gant. And there are, and I just want to appreciate both you and Khalilah really underscoring not only how gardening is just a wonderful way to live out your faith through environmental stewardship by tending to creation, but just addressing environmental justice issues. Just in short, I think the seed is such a wonderful way to teach, especially children, the goodness of God. It's amazing from a little dry, small, pinhole, all the fruit and all the life that just comes bursting out through it. So they're just really great intergenerational activities to do with members of your church and youth groups. Thank you so much. Before we close out, and we actually have one link that I wanted to share. I meant to at the beginning, so please, everyone, before we open the floor here and stop share, there's a link to a survey, and we just want to know what you thought about tonight's program. It really helps improve our programming. We're grateful to hear your feedback. And before we just unmute and just ask questions, there's one that I wanted to ask both of our experts on. Maybe someone has the answer. When is the time to plant cover crops? And maybe that just depends on what you're planting. But yeah, that was a question that came through. When to plant cover crops?
Okay, I'll take that one. Like you said, it just depends on what you're planting and when. And if you always want your soil to be covered, if you notice in nature, leaves fall, it covers the soil, so if your beds don't have anything growing in them, the soil will erode, the life in the soil will die out. And the cover crops really help with that. So A good rule of thumb when you're just starting out in the wintertime, a lot of people don't like to be out in the garden in the wintertime. I'm one of those crazy ones that still garden out in the winter. But, you know, most of those, all of those, the three that I shared are winter cover crops. So when you close your beds out in October or November, you take those crops that you've grown out, and then you plant the cover crop, and it stays in there until around now, if not, you know, sooner, and you could take it out, and then prepare your beds for the spring planting. They also have summer cover crops as well. So if you have a space that you're not using, it's the summertime, and you want to make sure that you're adding back to the soil, they have some summer cover crop blends as well. So it just depends on what you're doing with your soil and when, but you always want your soil to be covered. That's the main thing.
That's such a great point, and I never even thought that that really is just reflecting the natural cycle of things. It really clicked when you said, "Oh, during the fall, there's leaves on the ground." That's something I try to talk to my HOA because I try to push back on because everyone wants the rake leaves, right? And I don't have like a fenced in yard, so I get it. It's an eyesore, but it's also a habitat for so many other, you know, hibernating folks. So thank you for explaining that and breaking that down. And I'm not sure if you want to take this follow-up question, but this was something that came up during your presentation. So I believe it might be directed towards the use of rain barrels. And is there a concern that you might have with microplastics leaching into the soil from the plastic containers? So that I thought that was an interesting, as we hear more and more about concerns with that. Do you have any concerns?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean,
because we're all
really,
getting exposed anyway. Right?
Look, I would say
Yeah.
I'm real easy, right? You know, I do understand that there are some people out here who just, you know, every little thing, you know, they're trying to, you know, combat, right? So I get it. I get that that's maybe a concern, but I also understand that the people who are creating these rain barrels and who are they have all of that in mind, in my opinion. But from a it's just such a small thing that I don't have a concern for it. And I may be controversial when I say this as well. A lot of times you hear that you don't want to plant your plants in certain types of wood because of what but the leaching from the wood is not going to be you know, large enough to make a real difference in your plants, right? So it just depends on your preference. And if you are, you know, I'm not that hardcore where, you know, I'm concerned about the plastics leaching from the rain barrels. That's not, I don't think it's a big enough issue to not use them.
I really like how you explain that. And also it does make good sense, right? The manufacturers do have standards. You made mention earlier if it's a proper rain barrel, right? So you should be doing your
Right.
due diligence to get a good rain barrel. That way you're not worried about the product quality. So that was a really great explanation. Thanks for sharing that. It's always good to weigh out the risks, right? And some of these risks just don't compare to the overall benefits. Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
And I want to make sure I'm not forgetting any questions or leaving anyone out. So while I'm just looking through the chat, you know, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. Just want to make sure I get everything.
Yeah, so I'm seeing a couple of questions about with how to. So these might be maybe Novella or you, Khalilah, would be able to answer. How do you grow cucumbers that stay alive?
Oh, wow. So, Novella, did you want to answer that? Because I don't mind.
Well,
Okay.
we grew cucumbers in one of the raised beds. And not only did they stay alive, I feel netted we grew too many because cucumbers is something you have to pick every day. We grew so many cucumbers in the raised bed out there in the sun that that I learned how to make pickles.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
it was very,
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's, what's the problem that you're having that they're not staying alive?
Dory, can you?
Yeah,
unmute?
yeah. I think our soil or something has, is it a cutworm or something? I mean-
you have cucumber worms.
Okay.
So you have infestation.
Should we, what should we, spray it with something or?
You can, so
Uh.
you can use peppermint, peppermint and a soap to get rid of it. There is,
Okay,
there's a number of different like natural remedies you can use.
okay,
But the best way to avoid it is to make sure that your plant is healthy and happy. Because a
Okay.
lot of times when you're trying to do organic gardening, the bugs are going to come. But if you
Yeah.
have a healthy environment, if it's thriving, if it's a nice ecosystem, if you have those pollinator-friendly native plants that I told you about, it'll bring
Mhm.
the bug that is the predator for whatever's harming your plants will be in the space. Cucumbers are hungry hippos. When I say they
Okay.
love to eat, your
Okay.
soil really matters. So
Can you
if
overwater them? Or is there?
you can, they can get waterlogged.
Okay.
However, if they are thirsty, they're
Okay.
thirsty, so they need to be in well-drained
Okay.
environment, but watering regularly, especially during the hottest days, is vital.
Yeah.
They are nitrogen, they suck the nitrogen out of the soil, so you need to be fertilizing with a natural organic fertilizer like blood meal on a weekly basis.
Okay.
And you're don't overcrowd cucumbers. Cucumbers don't like to be overcrowded. Some things you can put in, you know, and have other things, but cucumbers like their space.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
I have one other tip. I'm sorry, I love
Yeah.
cucumbers.
That's
One
great.
other tip:
Yeah.
plant basil and marigolds around your cucumbers to
Really?
help kind of deter other like the pests.
Oh,
So
well, that's a good
cucumbers
idea.
love basil, they love the marigolds. Same thing with um your peppers. You can plant those same things, the marigolds
Okay.
and the
Great.
basil.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And one more, how do you protect blueberry bushes?
Oh, okay. So awesome. Amazon has these really nice little nets that you can put over, or you can find something at home, but it's like a bird netting kind of thing. And when you're saying protect, are you trying to keep them for yourself and not let the birds and everything eat them? Is that what you mean when you say protect blueberries?
Yes, even as long as they can get that big, I planted some in the fall and something got to them in the fall.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
bunnies or something, squirrels maybe, ate the new shoots. So, once I get something around them, then once I actually have some blueberries growing, then I was wondering how I can eat them instead of the birds.
Yeah, those nets really do help. And they have some that are large enough. If you put are your blueberries in pots?
No, they're in the ground.
They're in the ground. Okay, so you can pin the netting to the ground if you get the right size. And just keep in mind that blueberries don't often produce a tremendous amount of fruit the first couple years, but the third year and on is when you'll get your bumper crop. So
Okay.
depending on the size and the age of your blueberry, you may not, get the crop that you desire the first couple years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much. These are really some wonderful questions. And I'm grateful for all the expert knowledge that you have, Khalilah. It's really wonderful to hear, you just really leaning into the balance of nature and how that usually kind of just works itself all out, right? So you don't have to use as many pesticides. You don't have to use as many fertilizers when you're using the
Right.
native plants. And I'm not a big bug person, even though I love nature, but I do love ladybugs and praying mantises. So if you have those in your garden, those definitely take care of pests that you don't want.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks so much again. This has been such a wonderful and informative webinar on seeds. And we encourage folks to check out the in-person demonstration that we're going to be having later this spring in May. It's on our event page, and it'll come to the follow-up in this post recording email that will get sent out. And if you're in the area, we really encourage you to come by. It's going to be an amazing in-person event to really get some firsthand experience from our experts that we talked about this evening. Would it be all right if we moved one slide ahead? Any questions that may not have gotten answered, I'll be sure to do that in the follow-up, but I believe everything did get answered. Again, one last time, for anyone that didn't get a chance to fill it out, please take a look at our survey. It just takes a few moments. It really helps us to improve our program. We always enjoy your feedback. And as always, before we all leave for the evening, we just want to end with a reflection as well. This is a poem, but it's one of my favorite poems. And with spring, I just cannot help but be grateful every time I step outside the door. So I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the sweet earth's flowing breast, a tree that looks to God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray. A tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. Thank you all so much for
Beautiful.
spending your Monday evening with us.